The topic is central to Muslims, the National Development Planning Agenda. And if we understand what the National Planning Agenda is about, if it is properly executed, it's supposed to be the blueprint on which the nation develops, on which the nation will deploy scarce resources. First of all, why do you have to plan? We have to plan because starting off, resources are scarce and you've got to make choices. So what kind of choices do you make? And therefore, the National Planning document is that document which prioritizes all the key challenges of development so that over time, the various administrators of this land will allocate the scarce resources for effective development. Luckily for us, Ghana is a secular state. However, the Muslim Ummah is blessed in a secular state such as Ghana that we have free democratic elections and that in our various, and in fact a deeply decentralized local administration system. So in our various localities, we have the opportunity to participate in the selection of people who represent us, right from the district level into representation in parliament, and indeed we could form all sorts of pressure groups to ensure that our voice or issues are put to the fore for consideration. So I think to start off, the background for a participative national development document incorporating the views of the Muslim Ummah exists. So we cannot say this does not exist. I think the challenge for the Muslim Ummah is, number one, our awareness of these structures and how we can funnel our issues through those structures into the final National Development Planning Agenda. And I think sometimes we beat ourselves too much. There could be several reasons, and I hear, and as a Muslim, getting really sick and tired of statements such as deprived Muslim communities, backward. I just think we should resolve, at least as Ghana Muslim Academy, indeed made up of Muslim professionals, to drop such references from our own presentations. We should drop it. Because if you look at planning of any kind, you first of all don't have to speak English. You don't have to speak English. First of all, you have to look at the structures that brings us together as communities, whether in the local, where we live. And I like to find a better term for Zongo, because Zongo is now becoming synonymous with everything that is problematic. And it is not supposed to be so. It's not supposed to be so. So let's again challenge ourselves to say that we will live in organized communities. You cannot begin to plan. You cannot begin to get a voice into the National Development Planning Agenda. You cannot begin to get an allocation of the scarce national resources for development without living in well-organized communities. Well-organized communities where there's law and order. Remember, this is a secular state. Where there's law and order, we are organized, we live, and we have basic things, or we don't have them. If we don't have them, that is part of the processes of planning. So I think for me, is for us to have a new definition for ourselves. Let's have a new definition for ourselves, and move away from some self-imposed stereotypes. Most of the things that we say here on this podium are not imposed on us by anybody, by ourselves. How we define ourselves, how we frame our mindset is sometimes imposed on ourselves. My plea on this podium is for us to be a bit more expansive, be a bit more kind to ourselves, look at the resources and all the history we've told about the Ghana Muslim Academy. These are made of Muslim professionals, and there are several professionals across the world, not just in Ghana, who are Muslims, and will step forward to help us if we, first and foremost, will organize ourselves wherever we live and abide by the law. The other thing that we need to look at is research. And again, there is enough professionals within our midst. We have enough professionals within our midst to research. The roots of every planning in any country, in any small community, is research. It's research. You have to, because there are several issues, and to be able to overcome it in the planning and development process, you've got to understand the root causes of some of the challenges. You cannot be just make a sweeping statement around lack of educational achievement, around opportunities, around infrastructure. You can't just make such sweeping statements. Indeed, if we took our time and used the right methodology to research all of the issues that confront the Muslim Ummah, I have absolutely no reason why these issues could not become the top of the National Development Planning agenda. But because most of our issues are lamented upon, they are not based on research. Therefore, we just become another group of, people who are just lamenting. But if, for example, we base off all of our issues in our communities, in the sub-regions where we live, on research, these findings will get into the National Development Planning agenda. And the Muslim Ummah owe it to ourselves to tell our own stories. So, for example, just look at the example that was given today, which was being confirmed by our Honorable Chair, that 2/3 of prisoners, I want to say they bear Muslim names. They're not Muslims, or unfortunate Muslims who've got themselves on the wrong side of the law. But if we look at the religion we practice, and I'm not one of the sheikhs. I tithe in my own small way, following the sheikhs to devote time. If we look at the religion we practice, there's absolutely no way you embrace Islam and end up in prison. For unless it is for really, really very unfortunate circumstances, there's no perfection in human life. But I bet that if we did the research, most of it will be based on very common things Muslims should not do. So it's not about us. If we did our research, it will not probably be about spending resources on prison reform. It will be about ensuring that the moral and principles of Islam are basically put through and properly supported with resources, so that the youth can find much better time to participate in national economic development. But again, research has shown us one of the areas that we need to participate in. So whilst the development planning agenda is very broad, for the Muslim Ummah to be able to bring our issues to the fore in a secular state, we need research. And I'll ask the Ghana Muslim Academy, as part of your annual programs, let's pick one issue at a time and ask for detailed research to support our programs. Indeed, I serve on another policy institute that looks at education. If we look at educational achievement across the country, and again, it's based on research. It's not just based on Muslims. It's on total educational achievement, and of course, in it, you'd see the various aggregates, some of which is very staggering. And therefore, if you're able to come forward with this kind of information, we're able now to get the critical issues onto the National Development Planning agenda. To conclude on the issue on research, it's not to say that we don't have issues, but let's not do what everybody else does. Let's not lament on it. Let's go back and find the root causes. The other thing in our national development planning process, let us stand up in wherever we are and be exemplary Muslims, and be exemplary Ghanaians, be exemplary leaders. Let us put our issues in a selfless manner forward, because the history of this country is replete with Muslim leaders in various spheres of life who have participated in the national planning process and the national development agenda. How have we truly represented the communities that put us forward? So once we move beyond research and put forward our issues, we've got to participate in the planning and the development process. We select our own leaders in our own communities to go and represent us. And if you go back and trace the history of this country, in today's government, Professor Rabiata Arma is on the Council of States. She is not the only Muslim on the Council of States. That is probably the highest office, advising the president. And then you can come down to various ministries, whether as chief directors, ministers, call it. We are all in absolutely responsible positions, taking part in a secular state in our development process. How do we truly represent the people, the Ummah that puts us forward? I think that, again, for me, is us doing an introspective review of our processes. And sometimes, how do we, as a Ummah, take up challenges? Look, every national development process will have challenges, will have shortages, will have inadequacies. Everywhere there are inadequacies, and especially in our Ummah where we live, what do we see? We don't have an organized analysis of the issue and presentation. We typically will be caught on the wrong side of the law, presenting what is a very, very genuine. Am I making myself clear? That, again, not only do we as leaders fail our Ummah when they put us into these positions to represent what we plan or what we ought to be planning for, or what we have to develop, or what we have to be, for which we have been given resources to develop. When all of that is done, and development is a process, and we will play our role and move on. But the point I'm making here is, when typically there are issues around inadequacies as a result of the development process, because it's never stopping, and we need to articulate our points there. We're not very methodical. We usually will try to present this, which are very genuine, but in a manner that takes all the issues away, and rather it is the mode of presenting the issues either in riots or some kind of acts that are illegal. And our leadership don't seem to have a way to contain this. And again, that speaks to whether, again, at the community level, we are actually providing responsible leadership. And I keep saying, for me, as Muslims, everything that we need to do, whether as leaders or followers, are clearly enshrined in the Holy Quran. Clear. They're very, very clear. So let us not, and in development, it is in the collective that we get wealth, not in the individual. It is in the collective. Let's always remember that it's in the collective that you see wealth. In the individual, you can see rich, but rich is not wealth. You can go to most of our communities that they call to pride, and you take a house, and everything that is, and it's $1 million house. It sits in the middle of nowhere with no sanitation, nothing. That is rich. What makes you wealthy is the community. If you could count a decent drainage system and and a decent road infrastructure, call it, then you have wealth. So let us always remember that all of these that determines development and gives rise to further research and further development is sometimes what is missing in our communities. So I think the other issue is, do we as the Ummah, and especially the professional organization like the Ghana Muslim Academy, and I think this year when I was researching this paper, I found out that there was a significant input into the national development process by various Muslim groups. But please, let's make these documents our own. Let's make these documents our own, in our own communities as we discuss. Let's take the National Development Plan and say, what does it say about us? How do we own the process and push it forward? Because we start off by saying, why do we plan? Because resources are scarce. So if you plan and you prioritize, and by all means, I always say that when a policy hurts no one, it hurts everyone. In a national development policy, if it doesn't hurt somebody, it hurts everybody. And to hurt does not necessarily mean, it means sometimes to take the resources away from somewhere and give it to somebody else or some other group. And taking the resources from somebody, are you hurting the group or not? You are. And when you give it to somebody else, are you benefiting the group or not? You're benefiting the group. So there's absolutely no policy that doesn't take away from somewhere and allocate somewhere. You rationalize by saying that where you are taking it to generates a delta or a change that is greater than where the losers are. So in the aggregate, the community benefits. Where do we, as the Ummah, own the process and ensure that we can police it and make sure that the resources are not consistently being taken away from us because of all the issues we had already underlined. So the point I make here is, let's take hold of these national development planning documents. Let's strip them, and we have across, whether it's education or health or security or infrastructure. We've got people in all of these areas. So it's not about one person reading a 350-page document. It's just about engineers taking a few pages on infrastructure who are sitting here with us. It's about educationists taking a few pages on education and articulating it and sharing it across the Muslim Ummah, so that we can own the processes that have been that have gotten into the national planning process, and ensure that the right resources are allocated to it. So I think, as I said, we have to redefine our own narrative. We have to ensure that we have some level of organization in our own communities. Our leaders must truly lead. The holy book on which we base our faith has everything in it that will make us law-abiding citizens. And indeed, I keep saying, as I reflect over the Fatiha that we say at the beginning of every prayer, and even as you reflect on the call to prayer, it says, come to prayer, come to success. Isn't it? Come to prayer, come to success. So how can we pray and the success is not coming? Are we really responding to that call? You don't really have to go and meditate too far. The call to Azan says, come to prayer, come to success. Can we truly look ourselves in the mirror, in our own communities, and say, success has followed our prayers? So where are we missing it? So where we are missing it is not in our religion. Because our religion says, come to prayer, come to success. If you go to Fatiha, it tells you, He is the one that will provide it. So how could you really be worshiping and He's not providing it? So I think it's about us and how we organize. It's not in our religion. So I think I will pause here and ask us to take our lives really, really seriously. And to the young ones, there's so much you can offer. And I encourage you to be more active in your communities, be more law-abiding to start with, and organize and be more focused and have a purpose. Thank you very much.